Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Mr. Soul Cole. And you know what? Let's bring him on down. How you doing today, Soul?
I'm doing well, Marcus. How about yourself?
Doing great, my friend, doing great. So always first question every episode, every interview. We've interviewed about 1,000 people and counting.
Okay.
People love the show. First question is always the same. What does the word authentic/authenticity mean to soul?
For me, that word means real. That word means like there's no other way I can show up as other than being authentic and being your authentic self. And so I think it's something that is extremely rare in our society also today. I think a lot of people aren't I think a lot of people aren't comfortable being authentic in their own skin. And so for me, I think it's also authentic, and authenticity means being comfortable with who you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, authenticity means being comfortable with who you are. So, I spoke yesterday at a historical Black college, University of North Carolina at Greensboro,
Mm.
here in the Greensboro, North Carolina area. I live in the Raleigh area. It's about an hour and a half drive. And I told the young people in the School of Business yesterday, in life, you're going to have to learn to be comfortable with yourself and stop looking for external validation and or approval and start looking internal. I always tell people if everybody likes you and or everybody loves you, but you don't like and or love yourself, you lose. You lose
Yeah,
big. And you spend a
yeah,
life trying to always be what you feel somebody else wants you to be in the wrong relationship, in the wrong business partnership, chasing somebody else's goals, not your own. So I hope you all gain from Soul. It's about learning how to live and be comfortable with yourself and stop looking for external validation and or approval. Love that. So Soul, tell
yeah.
our global audience a little bit more about yourself, your journey, and then what you're currently doing now.
Yeah, so I'm originally from the DMV by way of Maryland, PG County. And after high school, I found my way at Rutgers University playing football before they went to the Big Ten. Just want to make sure everybody who's tracking knows about that. And played football for a few years, dealt with some injuries, ended up being redshirted, left school early to enter the draft, ended up not getting drafted. So that was, obviously a big disappointment and hurt to my ego. And found my way on on the practice squad with the New Orleans Saints that first year, which was similar to being redshirted. And so that was also a great opportunity for me to work from the bottom and get myself, back to where I knew I belonged. And eventually came that next year. I broke the 53-man roster, and I didn't look back from there. And so after that, more injuries came, and that ended my career a little short. Had a 4-year career with the New Orleans Saints, and a lot of grateful experiences. Right, played with a Hall of Fame quarterback who just got inducted, Drew Brees, and that was an honor, and had some great memories down there in New Orleans. But then in 2018, I had surgery on my neck and on my hip right after the end of the season. So that started my my downhill journey, if you will, because life is full of ups and downs. Life is a roller coaster. So that was the beginning. That was a part of the roller coaster I didn't know was going downhill fast. Luckily, my seatbelt was on, so I stayed in, but it was still an emotional and physical and mental journey on that point for me, which led me to, experience depression and anxiety at a time when, especially men weren't talking about the mental health as much as they are now, right? I believe Kevin Love was probably one of the first public, you know, um, guys on that platform to talk about his mental health. And I believe maybe Dame Lillard might have come out around that time as well, talking about his struggles, but it still wasn't like it was still taboo. And so I had internalized a lot of what I was going through, didn't share anything. It took me a while to open up to even go to a therapist, if I'm being honest. It was the taboo of like, nah, that makes me weak or that makes me soft or something's wrong with me and I don't want to admit it. And so I had to overcome a lot of that and unlearn a lot of that programming and be willing to help myself in a holistic way. I didn't want to get addicted to, the pain pills like they were giving me after surgery. I didn't want to, overuse alcohol or abuse alcohol, any other vices that I know are common once you go down that path. So it was an opportunity for me to spend time with myself, opportunity to get to know who I truly was and what my identity was outside of football, outside of sports, and to look myself in the mirror, which is what I did. And I'm grateful that I was able to take that time for myself and from 2018 to 2019, right before the pandemic happened. And when quarantine shut everything down, I was already on the trajectory of self-awareness, of self-discovery, of self-love, and spending time with myself and redefining who I was going to be in this next chapter of my life. And so where that has brought me to now is being not only a mental health advocate and a mindfulness practitioner through breath work and sound healing facilitation, but also being a mental performance coach and also consulting for wellness experiences and luxury opportunities for executives, for teams, for organizations as well, and letting them know how important building that culture inside their organization, inside their own home from the inside out is important and valuable.
Man, I love this because so many people tend to forget how important it is for your mental health to be in a great position in order to live the type of life you want to live. I don't know if you saw Trey Johnson's a former offensive lineman for the Washington Redskins,
Yeah.
54 years of age, horrifically passed away not that long ago. And
Hmm.
I got a chance to meet him because him and my brother were Pro Bowl players around the same time, actually in the same year. I actually met him in Hawaii. He was on the NFC roster for the Redskins, and Johnson was on the AFC roster for the Ravens, and got to know him. And I don't know the circumstance that would happen to him. I hear potentially something around anxiety, stress. I'm not 100% sure.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, we now have another brother that was so young, only 54, gone,
Yeah.
gone. And it's horrific because unfortunately, people don't understand, like as an athlete, when you are no longer an athlete. So luckily for you, you didn't go down the same problems I did. I got hooked on painkillers,
Yeah.
Vicodin, hydrocodone, Percocet. Like I was taking them like they were candy. I got
Yep.
hooked on massive alcohol abuse and drinking constantly and, just defiling myself every way I could imagine because I didn't know what to do next. And luckily, I found another path. But I'm glad you didn't go down that path because it is definitely one where you started. You can definitely come back because I did, but it
Yeah.
takes a lot of work to
Yeah.
come back. And and you're also rolling the dice. You're playing, Russian roulette with your life. If you keep going down the path like I did, luckily I'm still here, but I did
Hmm.
not put myself in the best position. So love the work you're doing when it comes to mental health. So let's go and get right down to it. I see you have a shirt that says Soul Impact, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Talk about Soul Impact from the perspective of how you address mental health awareness.
Yeah, so Soul Impact, first and foremost, is the name of my foundation that I started a few years ago, and with the intention to show up for this next generation, right? And meet kids exactly where they are in grades as young as third grade to like that sweet spot in middle school. And the goal is to plant seeds of mindfulness to equip them with tools to help them navigate the journeys of life. So by the time they get to high school, by the time they get to college or the real world, wherever life takes them, they'll have these tools to help them regulate their nervous system and better, manage their emotions, handle conflict resolution with, with poise, with kindness, with compassion, treat themselves with love and respecting others, right? And so that's something that I wish that I would have had when I was coming up. I know I struggled with managing my emotions. I had a lot of energy, especially as a young boy. That's why I always had to play sports, but I didn't know, like when I was in school, I didn't know how to, and teachers didn't know how to help me manage my emotions in a way that, that wasn't demeaning, right? And so this is something, the programs that we have, the tools that we have, the products that we have to be able to support this next generation, not only the kids, but also add support to the teachers, add support to the staff and the families as well. So it's a whole community that Soul Impact is looking to serve with intention, with heart, with kindness. And so how it all relates to mental health, even though it's not a clinical service, like from a mental practitioner standpoint, these are all, I think they work hand in hand, right? And so we are able to bridge that gap between the therapist or the clinician before they get to that point, right? So we're working side by side in a way to support, and that's where Soul Impact is foundation is rooted in.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's all about meeting people where they are. That's exactly what it's all about. So when our parents divorced, my brother Jonathan and I, our
Mm,
parents divorced when I was 8. And
mm,
our dad had us in therapy. Oh, and I know I can't speak for Jonathan right away, but I know I was in therapy and I was 8 years old. I remember going to see Dr. Audrey Chapman
mm,
in Washington, D.C. She actually was it was technically Howard's campus. It was like near the bottom of the hill, near like the chemistry building, the biology building, the Howard Hospital. She was down
mm-hmm.
by WHUR. So I
Yeah,
remember going there and seeing her. I remember when I was struggling in college, I had issues with, anger and, an outburst and depression and anger management. And they had me go see a therapist. She actually was one of like I guess you call it like a kind of like a GA type of a therapist. It wasn't actually a full therapist yet, but
got it.
she had enough credits that she was working towards becoming a full therapist. So I saw her. Her name was Tina Russell. And I remember seeing those people. I remember going to see my therapist when I started going through my divorce, and that was helpful. So I love how you said meet people where they are, because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to reach people, we have to be able to connect with them. And if you can't connect with them, the likelihood of them
Mm,
actually working things out, getting the help they need, and moving on in their life with positivity and conviction and courage is a lot less likely. So, yeah. So please talk to our global audience about the type of clients you like to serve. I heard you talk about retreats and teams and events and luxury experience. Can you give more clarity to our global audience? Because I want people that work for a corporation that you have a good fit for, or as
yeah.
your target ICP, say, man, I love what Soul is talking about. I want to connect with him to help my team or my organization.
So yeah, it breaks down into twofold how I see my ideal avatar, and that is that elite high performer who identifies themselves in a way that they want to be able to take their skill set to the next level, take their team to the next level, and not just performance in the boardroom and not just performance on the field even, right? But it starts here in between your ears. And so just being able to take their willingness to be able to take them to the next level and beyond, because it's not all just physical. And to be able to, if you're focusing on burning out, if you're focusing on doing too much, how do you be able to slow down? How do you be able to recalibrate? How are you able to regroup, to recenter yourself, to be out, to be able to perform better, right? As an individual, but also with your team. And so then the luxury hospitality side. So whether that's in the restaurant business, whether that's in the retreat business and the experience, I'm able to come in and shift the culture of the program there, the team there, to be able so that they can be able to serve better, right? So if they're in the business of service, right, whether it's a hotel or a resort and a spa, they're in the business of serving their guests and their clients, but who's taking care of them and their team to be able to show up better? And because now we're in a time where there's a lot of burnout, there's a lot of turnover in that space. I'm able to offer support and offer transformation to get better results and get better return on that investment, better return on that experience.
You know, it's interesting, right? You talk about being able to invest and give people a better experience. So we just won a pretty big job. So it's not huge from the perspective of dollar amount, big name client.
Yeah.
It's not a big organization or things like that. So we work with some great companies like Home Depot to Intel. We've had some massively successful large corporations as clients. But we just got hired by a company called Project Jumpstart, and they're
Hmm.
out of Baltimore, and they help to get young people into the construction based field for a career, and
Hmm.
they call it Jumpstart. And so, actually, so when I had my company, my construction company in Baltimore, I hired several people from Jumpstart because
Wow.
it got formed in 2006. So this is their 20-year gala. And so
Wow.
I'm able now to go back. Again, I was telling somebody this 18 years ago, I started Caden Premier Enterprises, my old construction company.
Yeah.
13 years ago, I go completely bankrupt, broke, and have to leave Baltimore, move to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I have to start over from scratch. And
Mm.
I bring that up because you talked about delivering that experience. So the client asked me, Marques, here's your fee. Do you mind interacting with our sponsors, our students, our employer companies, the attendees? I said, I am a people person. I will
Yeah.
interact with anybody and everybody at this great event. And I'm
Hmm.
actually taking my daughter, who will be close to, she's 11, she'll be close to 12 at the time,
Hmm.
with me because I'm divorced, as I mentioned earlier, and it's my weekend. So I'll pick her from school, we'll drive
Hmm.
to Baltimore, have a great event. I bring that up because, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about the experience, right? When people know you can deliver excellent customer experience from
Yep.
the time they meet you until the time the deal is completed, that's when they know they can count on you. Customer service is fixing a problem when something goes wrong. So I
Hmm.
love how Soul say he's really all about helping people to get the experience and really drive that point. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think you mentioned to me before we chat, you're doing some keynote speaking too as well. Correct? Am I saying that correct?
Yes, sir.
I love it. Let's go there. So Soul,
Yeah.
please tell our global audience, what do you like to speak on when you deliver keynote speeches?
My main keynote right now is making mindfulness cool for high performance. I'm gonna say that again. Making mindfulness cool for high
I love
performance.
that
And the
train.
reason the reason why that's important for me, and it's so going back to the theme of this podcast, being authentic for myself, right? My mindset is, if we are able to, and I say we as a society, if we are able to shift our mindset from thinking mindfulness is a chore and going from what are some of the things that we identify as cool in our life, right? That could be some of the clothes that we wear, that could be the music that we listen to, that could be the people we hang out with. We identify them as cool. If we've changed our mindset to now making mindfulness cool, how do you do that? You embody it. It's a daily life. It's not something you just doing for social media. It's not something you just doing for clickbait, right? And it's not something you're doing just to check a box on your mental health DEI survey at the end of the year for your business or company. This is something you need to embody on a daily basis. So for me, I show up as my authentic self, and that could be with getting on stage in front of hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, and I don't have any shoes on because that's how I like to walk around. And I'm gonna be comfortable. And if that makes you uncomfortable, so be it. That's just how I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna stand 10 toes literally on business and deliver an experience that you won't forget. You might forget my name, but you're not going to forget how I made you feel and how I showed up and delivered this presentation with authenticity, making mindfulness cool. And by the end of that experience, by the end of that keynote, you walking away thinking like, damn, I at least going to give this a try. I'm at least open-minded now that after hearing this, and it's not your typical Wellness Wednesday or Mindfulness Monday cliche. This is something totally different. And so being able to, without giving you too much of the experience, because I want you to experience in person, but just being able just to give you a taste of what that is and how I'm going to show up. So what you see on the biggest compliment that I've gotten from my presentations is somebody been following me before, like on LinkedIn or social media, and they see me in person at one of these speaking engagements, and they say, "Wow, man, just to see you in person operating exactly how you do online, then it's no difference." You see what I'm saying? Like that's how I show up online is how I show up in person. There should be no difference. How I show up in the office is how I show up at home. Right? A lot of people they tend to flip the switch when they go into the office or when they go into their place of work. But if you have the courage and the authenticity to show up as yourself and let your light shine, that's what I'm here for. So to make mindfulness cool for high performance is definitely my leading uh keynote conversation.
I like this, man, because I tell people if you're going to be authentic, especially young people, you have to control three big areas in your life: your environment, your input, and your associations.
Mm.
Where are you spending your time?
Hmm.
What are you feeding your mind?
Hmm.
And who are you hanging around? And I tell people if these three are 5 star or on the up and up, life is in a great place. If any of these are struggling or not doing well, there's going to be some type of issue or problem in your life. Now, granted, everybody's not going to always have things go the way they want them to go. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. What I'm
Right.
saying is they need to be at least on the up and up where you are in the right environment, you have the right input, and you have the right people around you. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad day or a tough day. I don't mean that. It just means that those are somewhat stable and positive and constant in your life. And that's my last question. So as a speaker, right? You
Yeah.
talk about the experience and all those great things. When you think about young people, when you do your keynote speeches or some of the retreats, right? And you're talking to adults, it could be the same way.
Yeah.
Which do you feel the three is most important and why? Your environment, your input, or your associations?
For me personally,
Yep.
environment, input, association. All right, so I want to make sure I understand the clarity of input.
So what you're listening to, like
Okay,
good podcasts,
got
great,
you.
all that stuff. Yep.
What am I receiving from like whether it's
That's,
books,
that's
whether it's I got you. All right.
yep, yep.
The most important piece I believe it starts with yourself. So it has to be input, right? Environment, you're not always able to control your environment, right? You're not
Mhm.
always and before you control your association, before you control who's around you, you should be able to control yourself within. And that's what you're investing into yourself. So that's what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you digesting, right? What are you consuming, as if you will? And so we are all consumers and with something. So what are you consuming on a consistent basis that also is transforming you from the inside out? And that also is going to have an input on or output on your environment and your association. So to answer your question, I would say input.
Love it. Soul. Great interview, man. Great insight on mental health, wellness, keynote speaking, meeting people where they are. I have a great authentic tip. But before that, how can our global audience get in touch with you?
Yes. So if you follow my website at soulcodethebrand.com, and then on the nonprofit side, soulimpactfoundation.org. On both of those websites, you'll see access to my books, my children's book, Mighty Soul Adventures, Journey to Emotional Mastery, and then my memoir that I released last year as well, A Student of the Game, A Storyteller's Soul. And you also find me on social media as well, B_code16 on all social platforms. And yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and to reach your audience.
Love it, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, go and support Soul. Go and check out his books. Go and follow him on Instagram. Get that inspiration, get that great wisdom on a daily basis. And the authentic tip of this great interview, if you want to be successful in life, you have to learn to meet people where
Mm.
they are. If you
Hmm.
don't meet people where they are, more likely than not, you will never, ever reach them. So
Mm.
learn to meet people where they are to help them achieve what their heart desires. Again, my name is Marques Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marques show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.